Hey everybody, it's Eric Balance coming to you with the Resilient Minds podcast, where I feature beautiful entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and experts in their field, where they help us discover their X factor, their experience of life, only to discover how they were able to accomplish and find out their why factor, their big why, their purpose in life. So join me as we get to discover the beauty of our minds and how can we really continue to go after the biggest and most wildest dreams while we continue to pursue and manifest our greatest intelligence that comes from the heart. Also, if you haven't, go check out the new alignment course that I've created at www.ericbalance.com/alignment, ALIGNMENT. See you on the show. Welcome everybody to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm very grateful to welcome a dear friend. We haven't seen each other forever, Theo, and honestly, brother, it's good to reconnect. Literally, like I just hit record. Let's reconnect. So, this is like we said, this is the structure we create because we create as we go. This is the element of being creators and living in the present moment. So, brother, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. Second of all, tell me what you've been up to lately, bro. Please.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So since we last spoke, we met in Tulum at one of our buddy Gerard Adams's retreat, and man, it's been a whirlwind of just going within. And since 2020, I had decided that I was not going to go do speaking events and that I was going to go within. I was going to go discover more of myself and to understand deeper aspects of my lineage. And that was really humbling, and it was also really empowering to truly find those answers that I didn't know were within. So I recently have been finally starting up these live events out here in Austin, and we've had them in Vegas, and we're going to be having some abroad as well. I'd like to talk to you actually possibly about doing something in Dubai if you're interested. But yeah, so I've been totally just seeking more of who I am and the authenticity of my story, but in this moment. And what I've discovered is that there's so many magical things that happen every single day. And so I'm so interested in building a brand that is grown and evolved through the synchronicities of every day. And even if that's a small moment of epiphany, that's something that is deeply meaningful to me, and just getting curious about, okay, so how is this evolving me as a human, as a leader? And so we've been running this program, and what it is it's called Frequency Influence. And essentially it's a embodied leadership program where coaches, mentors, healers, and service-based entrepreneurs understand how to access more development of their feminine and masculine energetics from within. And the nervous system is something that I've always been fascinated by, and connecting that to the cosmos or the spirituality of life, and how to fully integrate that aspect of us in the context of business, and how to lead like a truly authentic and powerful business from the heart. And it's so easy to get into our egos. And this is what I love to teach, is ego integration, of understanding our own inherent patterns of just trigger responses and the way that we deal with conflict and confrontation in life through the power of understanding comprehension and communication. This is something that I'm so passionate about, and it all comes back down to what everyone's awakening to now, which is the power of presence. It's the power of just being here and trusting that this moment has an abundance of creative genius answers and ideas. And so us accessing who we are in this moment is exciting to me. That's truly exciting to me. And it's a softening of this perception of ourselves based on our past. It's a softening of the story of who we think we are based on our past. And it's this constant unraveling and blossoming of a unique voice that's inside of us. And so us, when we learn how to presence ourselves as just infinite multidimensional beings in this human body that has, you know, DNA, lineage, patterns all inside of our nervous system, how do we create a relationship with those patterns so that we can truly accept that we've always been free from the heart space? And so we, of course, in the context of business, we help leaders to generate and scale their businesses and scale their sales in a conscious way, where they're attracting those ideal clients, the people who they feel truly called at a soul level to serve, which is having a clear offering and having a regulated nervous system as they work, so that it feels like play. And that's actually one reason why I love talking to you, brother, because you always are just a perfect reminder to connect with that little inner child that just is here to express, to love, to create, to accept everything as it is. So
I love it, brother. Thank you for these kind words. And you know, to me, this is our responsibility. You know, it's like what you're doing in combining, you know, the essence of creation with the beauty of presence and the importance of grounding that to the now, to with through our businesses, through our artistic selves. You know, I always share about the art in our hearts, and as we follow the art in our hearts, we really get to ground this level of intention. And so now it's like it's beautiful because, you know, being in Dubai now, like I'm like I stick out like a sore thumb in a good way, but like it's beautiful because you know, everything just kind of magnetizes. And to me, this is what we've really been down. You know, when we were two years together, 2 years ago in Tulum together, um, I think there was a lot of like depth already made. But the thing is that, you know, over the course of these last couple of years, like you said, you know, it's been about really understanding the beauty of what is coming around and through us as us, and then listening and paying attention to the teacher, you know, coming through each individual that we meet, because the mirror is really involved everywhere we go. And if we pay attention, we can really hear what is available and coming through, when it comes to like any individual. You know, like when we're playful and curious, as you mentioned, we're able to listen more. And I think this has been why I've been so playful and why I've been so curious, is because I know that this way I'm just a student. And if more individuals are able to tap into that level of, you know, student dynamic, they'll see that, and they understand that we are like literally connected as one and interconnected to everything, that the mirror in front of us is just our reflection of what we really need to understand. So tell me, when you're going through, you know, your program, and how individuals are really coming back to themselves to really define this, what do you feel is the most important foundational kind of not learned behavior, because learned behavior is something that in fact we need to unlearn. But what is
Totally. We came here to unlearn. Well
right?
played.
Like,
Yeah, well said.
yeah, yeah, you know. And so it's like this reversal of the aging paradigm. But like, I think that, you know, you really have a good grasp on this, and you know, I think you're able to bring individuals back to that purity, and then also help them dive deeper by executing and like implementing what their truth is. Tell
Yeah,
me a little bit about
yeah,
that process.
yeah, totally, man. Think that's an amazing question. So I always like to provide this kind of context for what when we talk about self-discovery, we talk about bringing that freedom or that embodiment to the world to offer that, right? Um, what we can start to see is that there's these illusions of time, there's these illusions of money, there's these illusions of hierarchy, and so on and so forth, the illusion of completion. And so if I am able to provide tools within a certain context, it's almost like you're going to play a game. If you don't know the rules of the game, you're probably going to lose, right? And so what I love is co-creating with our clients and community a win-win-win, where I win, you win, the universe wins, because that co-creation creates a more profound, impactful piece of value to the universe, right? So the universe also wins. And so if we understand that this moment holds the frequency and the potent consciousness of a billion different ripple effects from one tiny decision, like a micro decision that could change the trajectory of your life. And I know everyone listening has had those aha moments of interruption of unconsciousness, right? Of like derp, I call it the derp state, right? Where you're just derping through life. And you have this awakening that's not, it doesn't have to be a profound near-death incident. But the way that I like to teach is give the context of, okay, when you create a structure for conversation, or you create a blueprint, what I always share with people is that most people don't really feel fulfilled by their life because they don't understand how their nervous system connects, and like their heart connects to their mind. So it's almost like they don't know that they're living from this mind that has a beginning and an end, like linear sequential thinking. Like when I do this, then I'll be happy. Or when I get the money, or I get the partner, I get the perfect, like, then finally I can feel complete. Right. And we think of all the times in our lives in the past when we thought that would happen. We got there and we're like, okay, that was cool. On to the next thing. Right. So that's how we know that that's not going to fulfill us completely. And so if we trust that there is no end, then we dive deeper into the quantum of the heart space, of the emptiness, of the nothingness. And this is why I'm so passionate about this work, because it's so easy to get a spiritual ego in this industry, especially in the coaching industry, but just in spirituality, just in general. And so I always am devoted to being the embodiment of the transformation, and committing that every day, committing to that every single day by getting into my cocoon of meditation, of the deep work, and staying devoted to that, so that I'm constantly refining my butterfly, my fullest expression. And so the first phase is called breakthrough discovery, which is to truly ask yourself, what do you desire? As a child, we had these inherent desires, and oftentimes we were told no. And if you've ever studied the learned helplessness study, where they put the dog in the cage and then they open the door, but they zap the dog every time that it tries to leave, it just over time learns that it's just the truth that it can't get out of the cage into the freedom, right? And so subconsciously we have these programs that we think it's right, or it's just a habit to say no to what we truly desire in our sovereignty. And this is why this is why I connect so much with your content, because it's so on point with the power of leveraging sovereignty for creating a unique expression in the world, right? Like a unique impact in the world. And so to get clear in terms of the identity level, meaning, okay, this is what my whole life looks like, not just my business. Like, let's build an empire based on a holistic way of harmony in our relationships, our health, our spirituality, and our wealth as well, our prosperity, and how we serve in the world. And so getting clear on that sets the tone for the whole experience, because then we're playing the game of infinite total possibility. And then we're saying, okay, we're going to play a game just like kids and pretend in the context of unconditional love and accepting what is of, okay, I remember last year, Eric, you and I, for instance, if we were to be doing this, just to give people an idea of what this feels like, because if you feel it, you can actually resonate with it. Remember that time last year when in 2022, now it's 2023, Eric, you and I had this podcast, and now this is our live experience. And how good does that feel? How grounded and how at peace our regulated nervous system is, and how amazing it just feels to be in that flow of constant creativity and constant receiving and contributing, right? So it's like getting into that frequency of like appreciation of it's already happened. So our bodies respond to that conversation. It's a way of selling yourself on the vision in a really profound way before you know all the steps, right? Because we can get obsessed with the strategies and the steps when we may be cutting ourselves off from seeing these unknown opportunities where we're just so focused on our tunnel vision of how we expect to get somewhere. Well, maybe there's a door that we're not seeing because our bodies are not connected to the now. They're not, which is not connected to the vision. And then from that point, we just take people through this hypnotherapy and NLP and cognitive behavioral psychotherapy process of truly having the process facilitated, where they can learn how to facilitate it for themselves to process the emotion, which actually has a lot to do with grieving, which implies processing sadness, grief, despair, victim consciousness, and actually anger, we call it sacred rage, right? Processing that without projecting and blaming, but with true atonement, right? With like true forgiveness after we've done the feeling. And then from that, disidentifying from it, we replace those old beliefs, the new beliefs. And that's when you can truly connect to the now from the heart. It's almost like you're dissolving these walls of lack of trust around the heart. And in the context of the business world now, there's a whole new level since 2020. There's been a whole new evolution of the buyer sophistication. Everyone's so much more skeptical these days. People like buy less. They're just not as trusting in the context of business. And this is something that applies to all business owners, that the 80s way of marketing and sales, like push sales or push marketing, it just doesn't work, man. Right? That you can't guilt people into buying. And the people who do respond to that are the lower consciousness people. So if you want to attract high level clients, you've got to treat them with love, acknowledgement, and respect. And so building a community around that is so exciting, because you don't need proof before you can start implementing this. And so from that releasing of the any kind of subconscious blocks, I guess you could say, will regulate your nervous system to being able to truly accept and love, like now, like all your circumstance, you love it. And then from that point, we create what's called, for lack of a better term, in the context of this conversation, becoming a social leader. So becoming a high level communicator, where you perceive yourself as higher like status, I guess you could say. But the reason why you are able to perceive everyone as a 10 out of 10 is because you perceive yourself as a 10 out of 10. And you're not going into a conversation where you perceive someone else as a 10 out of 10, and then you lower your status. Like you're like, oh, I'm a 5 compared to them. They're a 10 out of 10. And so we shrink ourselves subconsciously because we're not aware of how we perceive our own self in the world. So as long as people can embody that, they're able to learn how to step into their feminine of allowing and receiving and just feeling good unconditionally, right? And asking people questions and truly listening. I can't tell you how many quantum leaps I've taken from just shutting my mouth and listening and truly just allowing myself to be touched by life, right? And by people, which is that feminine. And asking for help. How about that, right? Like trusting that that's actually a sign of humility and strength when we actually go out and ask for help. And then implementing the masculine of simply, hey, I'm going to make a choice that takes me beyond my circumstantial self, which is what we call the small separate self. And so even though that choice is uncomfortable and it's definitely scary, that's a choice that is casting that vote for that new identity, that future self that we're connecting to in the quantum of that masculine action of, okay, I'm going to decide to do this. I've got my values. I know who I am, and I'm going to embody that masculine leadership of aligned, inspired action too. So it's that harmony of allowing, receiving, but also going out there, taking that necessary action that is going to feel as if it's not a big deal if we don't get the result that we want. Does that make sense? Because my intention in the world is
the result is always coming, kind of thing. The result is always giving you the best way.
Yes, and it transcends the motivational industry, because the motivational industry will serve someone in apathy, right? Or indifference. And they're just stuck, and they just kind of want to be, it's almost like they want to be stuck because then they know who they are. But once you transcend the motivational, like a means to the end achievement of like, I did this, right? It's all about me, me, me. You come into this more abundant way of building, which is giving yourself that leeway. Like one of my mentors that I've worked with, Kyle Cece, says, well, if you want to be wealthy and abundant and prosperous, you've got to be willing to accept the worst case scenario of going broke or whatever. If you want to live a fulfilling life, you've got to be willing to be happy by yourself. If you want to live your best, most fulfilled life, you have to accept death as a natural part of life. So going into the darkness is one of my favorite places to go with people, because that's where we find our fullest freedom and expansion. So we connect to the all that isness of the whole spectrum of light and dark in our own world. And then we're acting in alignment where we're going for this heart-centered soul calling. And we're also saying, hey, if I totally flop, if I screw it up, it's perfect. Like, it's okay. I'm still loved. And then from that aligned vibration, we're not saying, oh, I must make this happen, or I'm not enough for my dad, or I'm not enough for my parents. Does that make sense?
Where do you think when you come into like the work that you do? Because like, for me, the sovereignty, is like such an important part of like as we evolve as beings, and the sovereign mindset, the connection to the collective is the direct path. But most importantly, I mean, I have my different ways of explaining it, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are of when people have to kind of like let it go. You talked about, money, letting it go, or being worried that you might go broke, or death, so to speak. But these are the survival mechanisms of what we've been kind of conditioned to believe for such a long period of time. And a lot of people can't let go of that, and that's why they don't have to oftentimes go after their like true passions. And I mean, I was there for 30 years almost, so it took me some massive courage when I decided to go on my journey to break those shifts of, hey, like, I'm gonna fully let myself go. And then even still on my journey, I didn't know how to go deeper, because I knew I needed to go deeper, but I was still scared of the money side of things. So I was focused on doing things that were kind of out of alignment. Like, for example, just focusing on marketing, where that my depth was about focusing on like human understanding and sovereign wisdom and really helping people get through those breakthroughs.
Right,
So
right.
I needed to go deeper in myself to
Mm.
understand that I'm willing to go all the way to really
Mhm.
understand the energy of our, creator that's inside of me and inside of all of us. But and then so to able to create content based on that rather than focusing on the facade of being a marketer, right? To sustain myself because that's what I was doing for a very
Yeah,
long time, bro. You know what? I
totally.
was doing it to sustain myself. So I couldn't fully allow myself to drive right into what I needed to do or what I wanted to do, which was be, this empowering individual of allowing people to go through their own breakthroughs and hold space for hundreds or thousands of people in a room and be confident because I had my center, because I had my
Mm.
because I know who I am and because I can hold space now because I'm confident of the way that I can show up and help that whole space. And before being worried about the judgment or what are people going to think or all this
Oh,
bullshit,
so
you
good,
know?
dude.
Right?
Dude, you're on fire. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes. And that your story connects so much to mine because I was a producer and a DJ for the first 25 years of my life. So I knew about how to entertain. And that's how I connected with my parents growing up was I was one of four siblings. So I was like, hey, I guess I might as well learn all these instruments and be like, like a musician and an entertainer to connect with my parents. So it's kind of like being born on Mars, and then you get plopped down on Mars, and then these two aliens, double this, triple the size of you. They don't speak English, and like, maybe one comes home drunk, and they're like, and you're like, okay, I don't want to die, so I guess I got to do something that's gonna impress you, right? And so, right, so we kind of create these like talents, and these are divine, right? These are divine childhood talents that we kind of can lose connection with as adults because then we get into school and the the corporate industry and we kind of get indoctrinated into like how we should live our lives. But it's cool because everyone has inherent passion and a creative talent like that makes them a true artist, like you said, the artist of the heart. And so through my deep dark depression in 2016, I was suicidal, had anxiety, and so many addictions from that, just being a part of that industry in an unhealthy dynamic. I really learned how to understand what mental health is. And so what I realized was that there was this kind of word coming around, which is called, and I'm actually getting to the point here because I'm really excited to share it, but there's this thing called toxic masculine or toxic feminine, right? Have you heard that? You've heard that term before, right? So I like to overlay the concept of consciousness because when you're in a collaborative consciousness, which is what you were sharing, it's like you're able to contribute like real powerful value to many people in the world, right? We both do in our own ways. But you are giving people key codes to transformation. And so what those essentially are at a deep level are just ways that people are going to develop their masculine and develop their feminine energies. So I call it underdeveloped feminine or underdeveloped masculine because most individuals on the planet never had a rite of passage to become a man, never had a rite of passage to become a woman. So it's those integration of the masculine, the feminine, and the inner child. And so when we move out into the world, we're honoring the pain that we've gone through. And we're trusting that if we are just totally ourselves, we tell the truth and we're coming from love, and you're leading with truth, compassion, vulnerability, like you do, I do. When you share where you have come from, it gives you a dynamic of encouragement, right? It gives you're like, well, I did go through that. I did overcome that. And this is why I'm showing up for one person. And there's a great book called The Law of One that talks about how if you just trust that you're here, if you're in front of 10,000 people, if you just make the intention, right, to say, hey, my intention is to be in contribution and owning my power to that one perfect person who I trust is going to deeply resonate with my message and how I show up with nothing to hide and nothing to prove, then if I trust that it's okay if there's a number of people who highly dislike me or even hate me, if I trust that in my truth, that's going to be the perfect formula for how to get into that aligned inspiration. Like, because there's a different frequency to inspiration compared to motivation, right? It's almost like inspiration is like, hey, it's a calling. Like, oh, this is what I really feel called, like energetically pulled to do, instead of like, oh God, like I'm here and I'm stuck and I'm judging what is and I'm resisting what is. And I just need to get over there, And so then we tend to like overprove ourselves and we tend to, actually be control. Like to be honest, I've seen this happen with, I'm not going to name names, but there's been gurus who like, they're so enchanting and they'll feel called to the guru. They're like, whoa, wow, like this guru. And then the guru will like enchant them. And then like, they'll basically be able to use control, right. To create more power. And it's not necessarily doesn't make them wrong, but I think that once we understand our own power and our own sovereignty to realize that everyone is one, we're all one, then we can stop projecting our insecurities onto the gurus out of, envy, which is just seeing what you can do. When you're looking at that guru, you're like, that's actually me. But if I'm willing to release the lens of I can't have that too, then you won't, feel envious. You'll actually be excited. You'll be like, that's me. And so you're going to do that in a different way, in a unique way. But if you trust that, then you don't have to worry about that. And I was a people pleaser. So I know what it feels like to not have boundaries or values and then feel like a doormat, right? And feel like I have to sacrifice my truth or abandon myself in some way, shape, or form just so that I do or say things that I hope other people will like. It's almost like I'm filtering my own worth through the lens of other people's egos. And we just naturally, that's how we're designed as humans in the mind, is to like go into a situation with other people and just be like trying to control all the perception of other people.
And do you think that this is something, that society has created? Because I don't think I really believe that, it may not be the design. I think that we're designed to go through like this heart intelligence, but we've been conditioned by the mind to go through this perception of, hey, we're focused on just control. And it's hard for us to like seek certainty because, our number one human need is certainty. And so we seek it outside of us instead of realizing, hey, it's actually right inside of my heart. And the only certainty that I really need is the one that I have for myself. And then as a result, it starts showing up in front of you.
Yeah, totally. And this is so important because I totally agree with you that it was trained into us at a very young age through many different things, religion, schools, the media, etc., and the government. But essentially that I believe that is there for a reason in a way, especially in this time that we live in. There's so many people kind of just like questioning authority, if you will. And so that's a really cool, this is an exciting time to be in. I know there's a lot of people saying like, oh my God, the recession, and oh my God, the government, right? Like, but actually I think that we're moving into the fourth density of collective consciousness, where people are moving up from the third density, which is the solar plexus of like human connection and emotion and our relationships with other people. And we're moving up to this heart-centered connection with ourselves, like with our heart, and creating that truth within ourselves, that certainty within ourselves. And we're moving out of this competitive consciousness which is fear-based, into this collective consciousness, which is heart-centered. And it's all based on that, trusting that actually giving is the same frequency as receiving. So when you ask me for support, you're actually, if you don't ask, I'm not saying you specifically, but if you, for example, ask me for support, you're actually giving me a gift, because I have now the gift to give to you. And that's going to come back to me tenfold when I have the right belief systems. Right. But if you don't ask me for support, then I don't have, you're not giving me the opportunity to generate more abundance for the universe, if that makes sense.
Right? I love you, bro. Thank you, because you know what? I know there's so much that you can help me with when it comes to business. It's like I'm super excited to ask for tons of support, because you know what?
Oh, likewise, dude. We're brothers, man.
You know what, bro? Like there's so many things that, you know, I've been up and down. I've been through my peaks and valleys, and you know, now I'm going deeper into this, like, speaking and my own content, and now really bringing it out into the world. And you know, doing this from a place of being the artist, a complete artist, you know. And I love it because I've tapped into that creator inside my heart, and now I am also more effective in communicating it as well. And you know, I've tried at so many projects, bro, around the world. You know, I've done so many things that I've, like, failed, and I failed forward, and I failed a lot. And you know, I went broke a couple times, and you know, it's been amazing to learn because it allows me to understand that, hey, every single time that I was actually trying to put a project or another person or another situation in front of me, and I was kind of trying to hide. And so, of course, I created certainty inside of all of these other dynamics. But then, because I didn't have the passion, because it wasn't focused on my content or my creation, I lost the passion. And so, therefore, it kind of, like, dwindled. And so what I realized, bro, at the biggest, deepest, most important sense is, as I was growing, or as I've been growing, it's like, no, Eric, now it's time to put you in front on stage, you with your message, you with the way you communicate, you with the way that you're able to help people break through. And now that I've owned who I am, you know, everything is just coming. Everything is just showing up. Everything is just allowing. And I don't even have to do anything anymore. And I've built all the things for everyone else. But now I'm starting to say, hey, it's time to really take care of this inner mission that you've always kind of put to the side, or moved, like, around other creators or other artists, and say, hey, like, no, it's like, it's your brilliance, it's your wisdom, it's your sovereignty that is going to bring out so much sovereignty around other people around the world, because this is your power, this is your voice, this is what you can curate. So all I'm saying is, like, you know, I have a lot I can learn from you, a lot I'm learning from you in the current moment. And brother, it's, you know, like, business is going to continue to thrive because we're reconnected, and I definitely am looking forward. So if somebody is out there looking and wanting to know about how they can connect with you in your business, and what they need to really step into their brilliance of scaling, or your brilliance of helping them scale, then how can they do that? What can they do? And what are maybe, like, 2 or 3 things that they can do just from your insight right now to take that next step, and then maybe reach out to you after?
I would love that. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you so much. You know, our relationship has weaved, you know, in and out, just because of our locations. Right? Like, you're literally on the other side of the world. So you can't just be like, hey, I'm just gonna fly out, check you out, man. But you know, I'm in Austin, Texas. So if you've ever, you know, feel the calling, just let me know. But what I would say, I want to give people listening a opportunity to implement tools, you know. So if you pretended like you paid for these tools, if you implement them, you will shift things.
Beautiful.
And so the first the first key that I would offer people is you can't really take big leaps if you don't see the relationship, or rather the games or the strategies that the ego likes to play. Because if you don't create the relationship with the ego, what the ego likes to do is create obviously stories and assumptions and take things personally. And the ego it loves to create self-sabotage to feel accomplished, because the ego's job is to have us go for things. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not here to demonize it, but I'm just saying, like, once you refine the relationship of the way that it tends to work, I call it the ghost of the ego, because it's a ghost, right? Ironically, like when we resist things, the ego loves that, because then it perpetuates more resistance. So the first step to creating a better relationship with this is to have the courage to accept that you've always been free here in the heart. And that's hard for people to do, because they're like, well, it's easy for you to say, but that, just let that go, right? You've always been free, truly. So once you learn the games of it, you're not going to feel pulled to go recreate a circumstance that's actually just reflecting and mirroring your nervous system, right? So that's why it's like when we presence what is, and we allow ourselves to feel, and we understand that there's a protector up here in the head, who those who are not looking at us, I'm pointing to my head. There's a protector that's not allowing us to feel and be intimate with ourselves, right? To just feel the heavy emotions. And so one tool you can use is just ABC, awareness of like pausing. I mean, true transformation can only happen in the pause, can it? Right? Like when we just stop. And so if we think that if we're just being busy, then we're being productive, that's not true. So if we just pause and become aware, then we can breathe in the love of the now, right? And we breathe in the love of the now, we actually can voice what we feel internally and say, I feel worried about my situation. And I love that, right? And so that's accepting what is. And so then we're not pushing, we're not like resisting the now, and we're allowing it to just be processed. So that's the B of like breathe, because God's expression is not meant to be like explained. It's meant to be embodied, right? Through the breath, through presence, through being. And if we trust that, then we're just coming from fulfillment instead of chasing fulfillment. You know, you hear people say, I got to find my purpose. You are purpose. You're always evolving and transcendent. You're always an ascending being. So it's that breath that connects us to the now, to acceptance of what is. And then from there, from being in this moment fully and just being here, we're neutral. And that's the dopest place to be, which is totally neutral to money, neutral to relationships. Because if we're not neutral, we're attached, right? It's like we're attached. If we don't get it, then we're not enough. So we're just neutral to it. Then we can move from that powerful place. And then we can make the C, which is that super intentional conscious choice, which is based around our values. And there's always going to be 1 to 3 values that you can literally write down right now. If you don't focus, if you're not good at focusing, maybe being present is the value that you get to focus on from now until you master that, right? Or maybe not showing up consistently online. Maybe consistent commitment to your vision is a value that you hold dear to your heart. So making that conscious intention, which is always true in the moment, will soften your attachment to the goal, which is outside of you. It's in the future. And the intention is always true in the moment. So if you just come back to making that conscious choice, it's like, if I see myself embodying the value of consistent devotion to whatever growth or the vision, then I'm going to lean in. I'm going to lean into that fear. I'm going to lean into that uncomfortable. I'm going to lean into that, non-distraction or whatever. Right. And so once you make that conscious choice, you're making that choice not from this state of fight or flight, survival. Because if we're in the second thing that I'd like to share, so that's the process of like being in flow and surfing your emotions and making those conscious choices. The second thing I'd like to offer is regulated nervous system versus dysregulated. So, which is what we call fight or flight, which is like the parasympathetic versus the sympathetic. So you have to understand that if you are in a survival consciousness, it's highly likely that your ego is going to get to be right. And so what you've got to realize is that the ego needs proof, not promises. So you may see what's possible for you out in the world, but if you're in a survival consciousness, you're not moving as if it's already done. You're moving as if you need to get somewhere else. Right? So the ego is like, well, I'm doing these things. I feel stuck. But since I'm in this fight or flight survival consciousness, like it's almost like I can't believe it can happen for me, because I need to see it in my life before I can believe it's true. And then ironically, like, you're going to find a way to prove that it's true, that you don't deserve it, or it's not the right time, or whatever. And so if you let that go, you regulate your nervous system, it'll be way less likely to be making choices from your stories, to be making choices that continue to prove that you are your circumstance. Does that make sense? Right? Like, what if you like saw that that's just a pattern that we tend to have as humans, and you could say, oh, that's the pattern that just likes familiarity, thinks that my circumstance is safety. So how about, like, I can just love that part of me. I can accept it. I can forgive it. Just forgive it. It's just there to keep you small and separate, right? It's just, you acknowledge that, you integrate that part of you. And so does that make sense? So then you can be like totally regulated, and then you can make those choices that transcend your separate self. And this is what I call expansion from within. So when you expand from within first, you're saying, I choose to connect to the all that isness. I choose to connect to the all that isness. And when you connect to the all that isness, you're connecting to the sky, bro. You're connecting to the stars. And you're like, oh, wait, hold on a second. Wait, magic is real. Whoa. Like,
Absolutely.
synchronistic miracles are normal. They're a daily thing. And then that's when you're connected to the all that isness. And then because your consciousness is transcending even the witness, like you talk in spirituality, be the observer, be the witness. What if you dissolve the freaking witness? What if you just became nothing? You connected to the all that of existence, because we're all one. Energy is everything. So then you'll be more willing to look at your shadows. You'll be more willing to feel like crap and not make it mean that you're, not enough, or you're alone in that. Trust me, everyone in the collective is feeling a lot of heavy, dense energy. Everyone's feeling confused and worried. But the reason why people are killing themselves is because they think they are the egoic identity that's not serving them anymore. So it's almost like they're going down with the false them. They're going down with the false self. But really, God, the source, is like, has the whole collective in like a strainer. And he's like, okay, we're straining out the heavy energy inside of you. Let's do this. Right. And that's why people feel the pressure. They feel this like heaviness, but it's because the universe is literally, our consciousness is expanding. So someone like you, Eric, who meditates and is doing the work, right? When you come into the vicinity of another consciousness who's like not aware, and they're asleep and they're not doing the work, you're going to trigger them, bro. I'm just telling you, right?
All the time.
Your consciousness, yeah, because you're just truly yourself, right? And you're unapologetic with respect, right? With love. But because your heart is so open, they're so terrified of their own truth, right? So it's almost like they get triggered because they see themselves as source, but they just don't want to believe it because they're so stuck in story. And so because you're triggering, your consciousness is actually, without you doing anything really, is trying to push out the trauma energy in their body. right? So like that's why people are feeling this heaviness, is because the false you that's limited is the universe is trying to push that out of you. And so when we are devoted to our own butterfly work, we don't need to rob people of their own rock bottom. They'll, like people learn through pain. So we just get into our cocoon and stay devoted to expressing our butterfly in our own way. And we'll attract the right people because we will be the embodiment of that. Right. And then, and then the third thing that I would offer to people is learn how to truly listen and receive something from your body. Like I feel like this whole concept of like seek to understand is kind of limited, because if you think about it, if you feel misunderstood by other people, it just implies you're surrounding yourself with other people who don't, or just they have a lower level of consciousness. Doesn't make people better or worse, but they have a lower level of awareness. So they're trying to fit you into like your ascending being into their tiny like hole of consciousness. But if you realize that there's a whole community of people who totally get that you're an infinite being, who totally love you for who, like unconditionally, who want to support you, you'll realize that the unfamiliar is where you belong, right? The unfamiliar of abundance and connection and freedom is where you actually belong. Just because it's unfamiliar doesn't mean that you don't belong there. There's a seat for everybody, right? If you just accept that. So if you feel like you don't understand other people and you're kind of judging the people who are making it look easy, or maybe they feel good and they just want to share that with you, well, maybe it's time for that individual to listen more and to get curious more. It's like, maybe I should like listen, and maybe I should like go do something about it. Like maybe I should go ask that, like go contribute to the universe. Like if I see a YouTube video of someone who is making, a bigger impact than me in the world, and I get tremendous value of it because I implemented it, I'm going to go buy some of their stuff just because, as an appreciation thing, to get into the circulation of abundance. Because if we're always holding on to our resources, it means we don't trust our creativity. We don't trust our ideas. So, but when we invest, I always invest into things that will leverage my creativity. Does that make sense? So it's like, I'm gonna, if I feel myself getting into a scarcity pattern, which I still do, I will ask myself, okay, what's a way that I can invest into myself that's gonna get me into that flow of trusting my creativity in the now and the moment. And so this will help leaders to realize that you are the content. Don't get excited about what you're creating. Don't get excited about the business. Don't get excited about your content creation. Get excited about you, because that all came from you, right? You're like the vessel, you're the channel for that. And so this is why when we, do this work and we meditate and we go within and we practice these frames of conversation and content creation, like we're just elevating our own frequency internally so that it's normal to go out there and embody powerful leadership. It's just normal to like be a social leader. It's a way of being. And Eric, you're such a perfect example of that, because you empower people. You empower people, which in turn makes them feel safe. And so that's what people would need to feel first before they do anything with you, is that like they need to feel safe around you. And so like you're so good at honoring people and revering people that that because you're doing the work, like you feel fulfilled internally. And so that frequency is allowing you to co-create with the universe from this place of like, this vibration inside of me feels whole and complete. So now I want to share that feeling with people,
I love it. Thank you, brother, for that acknowledgement. It really means a lot to me. And I have to say, like you said earlier about the magic, bro, every day is such a magic. It's like a big magic trick. It's amazing. Like the things that are happening. And I'm still learning patience because like I'm literally like, I think something, my thoughts become things all the time now. And I mean, people show up, things show up. It's amazing. And right now, I'm learning the patient part. I told you,
Yeah,
right?
totally,
So
totally. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention. Yeah. So
I
Theo, my name, Theo Unique Voice on Instagram. You can
was just
find me
gonna
on
ask.
Facebook, LinkedIn.
Yeah,
My website is theocummings.com, TheoCummings.com. We're revamping the website, but it's still up and it has all my, social media. I'm starting my podcast, Frequency Leaders, which I'm going to invite you as well to be an honored guest as well. We'd be so honored to have you
thanks, brother.
to share your magic with us. But yeah, I'm
You're a
excited to
blessing,
connect
bro.
with you.
Before you go though, I want to ask you one last question.
Sure, sure,
If you
sure.
had three days left to live, what would you do?
Okay, if I had 3 days left to live, what would I do? Um, I would totally take a boat trip with my family, my loved ones, my family, and just spend time like feeling together and sharing together and crying and laughing together. Like that's what we would do. So that's one thing for sure. And a second thing would be to sit out in nature for like half the day or maybe the whole day and just do breath work, move my body, like just play around and on the ground and just connect with the earth and just dance and sing and meditate. Like I truly would just spend the whole freaking day on in nature with no phones, zero social media, and just connect with my soul, like connect with source. And then the third thing, of course, is I would DJ. Um, I would host like an ecstatic dance party for like the whole communities of all my friends and all you guys and everyone else, to truly celebrate being a human and to truly feel and to connect and to just be free, like to just express our full capacity of whatever emotion you want to be in. Just let it go, let it rip, and just live fully alive in because music helps us to connect to like all the emotions, the whole spectrum of human. So to truly express and just let source guide your body to do whatever crazy shit it wants to do, or yell or sing and do whatever crazy things you want to do, to truly step into that and also invite like it would be a sober event and invite kids to come, and we'd free the kids. We'd free the kids. We'd have an auction for like ecosystem rejuvenation.
Love it,
Save
love
the
it.
ocean, save the wildlife, and we just free the kids, and everyone else's inner child would also feel free, because
Always
they'd be unlocking their inner child too. So there's things
love
happening in
it.
the world that we're contributing to, as it relates to child slavery and all that stuff. So it would be a way to contribute.
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for listening to The Resilient Minds. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please make sure to go comment and like and follow us on iTunes or Spotify. And please make sure that if you really love this, to share this episode, and make sure that you're inviting all your friends to like it as we continue to unfold what the beauty of our minds does. More importantly, how powerful our heart level of intelligence can be when we combine our heart and our brain together. And more importantly, check out the alignment course that I've created. It's seriously there for you to take advantage of at www.ericbalance.com/alignment. See you on the next show.